People always ask what the scariest part of driving through Appalachia at night is. For me, it wasn't the breakdown, or the pitch black road, or the dead silence around me. It was the thing that slammed into my hood before I even got a chance to call for help. This happened 3 years ago, and I still get nervous every time I drive through those mountains at night. I was heading home from visiting a friend in eastern Kentucky. It was late, past midnight, and I was taking one of those winding back roads that cut through the Appalachian foothills. There was no towns and no lights, just woods on both sides that stretches on. It makes you feel like you're driving through a tunnel made of trees. About halfway through the drive, my car started sputtering. The engine light came on, so I pulled over to the narrow gravel shoulder. I didn't have a signal on my phone. There was no cars passing, and no houses for miles. It was just me, my dead engine in the dark. I popped the hood, but honestly, I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. And that's when I heard it, a snapping in the trees. Not like a twig, like a thick branch being stepped on. I froze. I first thought it was a deer, until I heard this low, wet breathing, almost like something trying to breathe through fluid, sick, struggling, animalistic-like. I backed towards the car and didn't take my eye off the tree line. Then something slammed in the back of my car, hard. The whole vehicle rocked, metal groaned, and I felt the impact through my ground. My first thought was it was a bear. I mean, it had to be. Nothing else was that heavy out here. But then it hit the side, not with its paws, but with something long, like a limb or a branch. The impact left a long smear across the door, like mud mixed with, I don't know, something thicker. I jumped inside and slammed the lock and got as low as I could. The windows were fogging from my breath, but I could still see enough to catch a shadow moving around the car. It was moving fast and low, and it wasn't walking like any animal I've ever seen. It circled the car twice, breathing that wet, raspy breath. Every hair on my body stood straight up. Then something scraped across my rear bumper. Long, slow, and metallic scraping, like claws being dragged. I kept repeating to myself, it's just a sick animal. It's just a sick animal. Because the alternative just didn't make any logical sense. Then the car dipped. Like whatever it was put its weight on the trunk, enough to make the whole back end sink towards the ground. My suspension creaked. I held my breath so hard my chest was burning. After what felt like forever, the weight lifted, and the breathing moved towards the passenger side. And that's when I saw it. It was just a silhouette, but the shape was disturbing. It was too tall for a dog, too bent for a bear. The head was tilted like it was listening, and there was this smell. I've never smelled anything like this before, like wet leaves mixed with rot. I don't remember making a decision. I just turned the keys out of reflex, even though the car had already died earlier. And somehow, maybe it just overheated, I don't know. Somehow, the engine caught. Weak, sputtering, choking, but it caught. I floored it. Gravel sprayed everywhere, and something hit the back of the car as soon as I pulled away hard enough to dent the trunk. I didn't stop driving for almost an hour. The next morning, I checked the damage. Deep, ragged scratches, mud smeared in patterns that didn't look like paws, one long dent on the trunk like something had sat on it, and a patch of coarse, dark fur stuck on the bumper. The mechanic said and looked at it like I hit a large animal. I don't know, but the placement of dents didn't make sense. The fur didn't match anything he recognized, and the scratches on the passenger side window went upward, not downward, like something had reached up instead of down. People tell me to this day it was just a rabid animal, a bear with mange, a sick coyote, something explainable. But I've been in Appalachian woods my whole life. I've never seen or heard anything that moved like that. And I hope I never do again. People don't believe me when I tell them this, but I swear Pittsburgh has places that just feel wrong. Just wrong in a way that's hard to explain. The kind of places where the air just sinks into your lungs heavier than it should. North Park is one of those places. A beautiful place, but off the beaten path can become a very different environment. And what happened to me out there is the reason why I don't go magnet fishing anymore. I'm from the North Hills, and when I'm stressed, I walk the trails alone. It was late September. It was right after one of those warm days that suddenly flips cold after sunset. The whole park felt empty. And I wasn't planning to fish. My magnet kit was just in my pack out of habit. I wandered further off the trail than I usually do, past a cluster of pine trees, till the ground dipped and the air got colder by at least 10 degrees. And that's when I saw it. A perfect circle of dead leaves in the middle of fresh, healthy ground. And in the center, a hole. A well, I guess. There was no stones, no boards, no cover. Just dirt dropping straight down like somebody had punched a tunnel into the earth. I got close enough to feel the cold air rising out of it. It didn't smell like water. Honestly, it didn't smell like anything I've ever smelled before. Curious, I dropped a pebble in it. No splash, no thump, no echo. It just swallowed it into the blackness. Against my better judgment, I clipped my magnet to the rope and fed it in. I slid downward smooth as glass. 20 feet, 30 feet, 50, 70. My rope is 100 feet. I never thought I'd use the entire length before. At around 90 feet foot mark, I felt the line twitch, then tug tighter. I pulled back, expecting the magnet to pop free of a root or a pipe, but instead, the rope jerked again. 3 quick pulls, like something was responding to me. My whole body turned cold. I tried to reel it in, hand over hand, but the rope felt alive, like something below was pulling back with the same rhythm. I whispered, "Hello?" But before I even realized I said it, the rope pulled again, slow and deliberate, and that was enough. I dropped that line. It vanished down the hole so fast that tail whipped the dirt edge and disappeared entirely. My rope, my entire kit, just gone. I stumbled back, waiting for something to rise out of the darkness. But nothing did. There was no sound, no movement. I ran full sprint, scared out of my mind until I broke back onto the paved trail, gasping like I'd been underwater. A few days later, in broad daylight, I tried to find that spot again. I just couldn't help my curiosity. I retraced every turn, every landmark, every dip in the ground. I walked for almost 2 hours, but there was no circle of dead leaves, no cold air pocket, no well, no nothing. I never found my rope, and I never found that hole. Maybe it's for the good. And I never wandered off that trail in North Park again after that. There are stories around here about strange lights and weird things in that forest. I used to laugh at that stuff. Now I know there's something really out there, something deep in those woods. And whenever I hooked that night, I don't think it was ever meant to be found. Lie. So this happened in late September, the time of the year when the Appalachian sky turns copper in the evenings and the woods get that cold, metallic smell before the fall fully arrives. Aaron and Lily had planned a simple hike, just a 3-mile hike, nothing intense. The first part of their hike was normal. Quiet woods, a breeze, distant birds. But the second mile, something started to feel different. Aaron said the first sign was a fallen birch tree. He noticed it because it stretched across the trail. They stepped over it and kept going. But 5 minutes later, there it was again. The same crack through the middle, the same moss line, the same angle. He assumed he was mistaken. That was until they saw it a third time. Now, the trail was supposed to loop, not backtrack, and definitely not repeat. Lily checked her GPS and it showed the trail, but they weren't moving. Their little dot just hovered. They kept walking anyway, because, what else do you do when you're already in the middle of the woods? About 15 minutes later, they come to this fork, except that trail they were hiking didn't have any forks. Locals know this, and maps confirm this. This fork was new. Both paths look identical, so they picked the left one, and after 10 minutes, they passed a rotted fence post with a rusty nail sticking out. 10 more minutes, the exact same fence post. Now, at this point, they were fully panicking, but they didn't want to admit it to each other just yet. When the trail finally dropped into a small clearing, Aaron felt his stomach sink. There, in the center of the clearing, was the fallen birch tree. Again, the same one from earlier, but now it was upright, standing tall like it had never fallen. And that's when Lily heard a sound. They weren't footsteps, and it wasn't an animal. It was their own voices, echoing, repeating something they said earlier on the hike. It was in the same tone, the same words, but coming from somewhere else in the woods. They turned around and ran as fast as they could back down the trail. They didn't talk. They were just focused on getting out of there. They just moved. And here's the weird part. They reached their car, they said, in less than 4 minutes, on a trail that supposedly takes people at least an hour. When they got home, the sun was still high, but their phones showed that 5 hours had passed. Their GPS app showed nothing but a straight, unmoving line, almost like they never left the parking lot. They started researching that area, and that's when they found old stories, real archive pieces from local historical societies. Back in the 1800s, families reported hunters returning from that ridge hours late, but claimed they'd only walked a few minutes. Others said that ridge borrowed time from travelers or returned them unfinished. One old story from 1912 says the ridge is a fold, a place where mountains bend time almost like a portal. And the most consistent detail? People who experience a shift always mention a fallen birch tree that keeps appearing. Exactly what Aaron and Lily saw. To this day, they won't say they encountered anything supernatural. They avoid using the word haunted. But they both agree on one thing. The trail wasn't looping. Time was.